Russian security consulting company. Our main specialization is penetration testing, and have a lot of work at banking sectors with PCI and PADSS standards. And of course we have I suppose very well known in the worldwide research center. First of all, when we are talking about ERP security, I would like to ask you who has any experience at SAP, who has any knowledge in SAP security. Okay, great, only two persons. Okay. When we are talking about ERP, about SAP, everybody knows that every financial, every important information are in the ERP. But who cares about ERP security? Who knows about ERP security, especially about SAP security? Almost nobody. But this is a paradox. All information are in the ERP systems, but the knowledge, the information about SAP security, about ERP security is on the low level. Let's talk about it. Because we are here, we'd like to show and talk about ERP security, especially in sub-security. From our point of view, there are four main global problems in ERP security. First of all, they are very complex, mostly available inside a company. This is a closed world. Contain many different vulnerabilities in all levels, and just not so often to update. Let's talk about myths. There are, from our point of view, there are at least four common myths about ERP security. First of all, that business applications are only available internally from intranet. Second, ERP security is a vendor problem. Myth 3, business applications are not known for hackers. And myth 4, ERP security, this is all about segregation of duty matrix. Let's talk about it a little bit deep. Myth 1, yes, from top management point of view, this myth is very popular, especially, I suppose, for top managers. But in real life, we know it's very well that there are a lot of different connections from SAP servers to the internet. Anyway, if you SAP servers do not have any direct connection to the internet, workstation, user's workstation has such connection. And it means that hackers can hack your SAP systems from the internet. Let's look to ex-SAP CSO. You can read. It means to bring together people who understand ERP security, and people who understand internet and email and web services security. And also, it's possible to attack, as I said, directly to the user's workstation, using social engineering, using buffer flow, user browser vulnerabilities, plugin vulnerabilities, ERP front-end vulnerabilities, and etc., etc., etc. We told about it at the Hack in the Box Amsterdam 1 month ago. For example, you can find from the internet, you can easily find to many servers, SAP servers that directly connected to the internet. Myth 2, ERP security is a vendor's problem. But from lower point of view, you know it quite well that vendor is not responsible for any vulnerability in their products. SAP, Oracle Business Suite, absolutely the same. Myth 3. Business application, this is internal problem and are not known for hackers. From current point of view, that business application mostly inside the company, that's right. This is really closed world and security through obscurity. But popular products is under attack by hackers and became more and more secure. This is like Windows, this is like other popular products. But business application were closed, this closed world. Almost nobody knows about SEP from security point of view. There are just a few hackers in the world knows about this problem. But last at least 5 years, they became more and more popular in the internet, and more researchers started to research in ERP systems like SAP, like Oracle Business Suite, and popular for hackers and researchers. And last myth that ERP security, this is all about SOD, this popular myth at SAP. But you have to understand that SOD, segregation of duty, this is real necessary, but not at all. For example, top 10 application implementation problems, SOD conflicts, this is 3rd place, and 10 other problems. And now we can talk about problems deeply from a technical point of view. Alexandr, your turn, please.
Hello, everybody. So let's look more deeply into the technical details of the problems. So the overall picture of the security of any application or system, the first of all, you must securely develop this, the second, you must securely implement this, of course, and the third, you must control this whole situation. So let's talk about those things more in details. Developing problems. Instead of any other applications, we have many different languages, many different technologies, many different platforms which are used in ERP systems. So, for example, if you want to be expert in the SAP development, you must know the ABAP and BSP technologies, you must know the Java technologies and web technologies and other, and you must be a security expert in any of this kind of technologies to build the overall system secure. So it's kind of a big problem. Implementation. So briefly, you have a different architecture. You can use the ERP system with different operation systems, with different databases, and of course there are different product versions and customization. So, for example, the architecture. So the SAP solution can have very different types of implementation. You can use the development, test, and production systems in, for example, in one operation system, in two operation systems, in three, and it is good. You can have different relationships with the test and production systems. You have different types of DMZ and segregation of these areas. So it's like a constructor. You can use it in your own way, and some ways are secure, some ways are not. And of course, you can implement the ERPs in different operation systems, and you must be sure that the platform where your operation systems are is secure too. So, for example, there's many guides for operation system security. The same thing for databases, because always the backend of the ERP system has all the information stored in the database, and even if you have a very well segregation of duties, if you have a good patch management only for ERP system, you can fail if you don't pay attention to the database security. And of course, there are many different versions of the systems, and maybe now the SAP R3 is not supported by the vendor, but it's already installed in many companies. So if you need to, so for example, in one company that can be different SAP versions, different add-ons, industry solutions, and any other, and every kind of this platform has own security problems. And the main thing is a big amount of customization, because so if you install the Windows system, you just can go through the checklist and make it secure. If you use the ERP system, you cannot simply use the checklist, because there are many customization for. So, for example, SAP in one company is different from the SAP in another company, and even if you know that some authorizations roles and they are not secure, the company can make their own role with own authorizations, and you cannot be sure if it's secure or not if you don't look more deeply in how this role is made. So that was brief problems, and let's think about solutions. What we can do with all of this is just some ideas. It's maybe it's very easy. So you must develop it, secure software. You must implement it securely. Teach the security guides and research guides. Increase the awareness of users, and control all process. And this looks very easy, only 5 steps, but it's not. To make something with these problems, try to start a new project in OWASP, the Enterprise Application Security Project. It was firstly introduced in 2006, but the man who started it just made a roadmap, and there is no modification for years. So we decided to reverse this and make own solution. So this is one of the contributors sitting here, Mikhail. And the purpose of this document is to introduce the problems and the solutions in ERP security, because, for example, there are many differences in ERP and the traditional web application security. So we have 5 steps, and we try to make 5 solutions. The first of all, solution for development is vulnerability testing guide, which will be something similar for our top 10, but we make a top 10 vulnerabilities for ERP systems. The next guide is the implementation assessment guide, because even if you have a securely developed software, you must implement it securely, and there are many problems in this area, and you must pay attention to this. And to increase users' awareness and administrators' awareness, we make vulnerability statistics, and we plan to make it every year to show people how many vulnerabilities in the ERP systems exist in this year, in every application and other. And of course, we are trying to make some tools to easy control the process, to test, for example, client-side security and server-side security. So, vulnerability testing guide. We read many sources like an OWSP and SANS and CWE, and they're all good, but we needed something different, because that will work only in ERP system. So that's how our document begins. So what are the project steps? And first of all, we analyze the popular ERP security vulnerabilities that we see in companies that we found in our research, and then we collect it all and make the top 10 list. And other steps that are in the process, we will make not only the top 10, but the top 10 is ready now, but it is in alpha version, so we maybe change it something. And another step is collect all information with the examples and make a big guide. So we, as I told, collect all vulnerabilities, and the main things that we wanted to do is not only show the top 10 vulnerabilities, but show top places where these vulnerabilities can exist, to easy find them. So vulnerabilities can exist if we talk about the platform in the application or in the front end. So maybe the front end is just only a web browser, but sometimes the front end is the own application. So if you have vulnerabilities in the front end, we also can have access to the data. Here's the first version of the top application vulnerabilities. It's similar maybe to OWSP, but with some of the differences. So the top vulnerability is cross-site scripting, and this is not new, and even if in the ERP systems it's very popular. And other things. So let's do some. Let's see some examples. So for the cross-site scripting is really a very big amount of these vulnerabilities in the ERP and SAP. So we internally have information about maybe 50 or more cross-site threatening vulnerabilities that are now patching by the SAP, and I think other companies who make research in this area have to. So it's a big problem. Another one is an information disclosure. It exists only in Oracle, in SAP too. It's a very popular bugs. More deep example, in SAP you have RFC protocol. It's like an RPC in Windows. You can remotely execute functions. So there is one technical user, SAP CPIC. The password for this user is the admin, and because this user is technical, the password is changed very rarely. And example, one attack is we trying to use the function which is making something with the file. So we just put the path name to the our SMB server, which trying to catch the credentials of the servers of the username from which the SAP server is working. So if we just run this command and in this IP address we run the fake SMB server, and we can collect the hashes from the application from the user from which one the SAP server is working. And often it's working from the user, not the system account, because in system accounts you don't have the hashes. Let's look at the front-end vulnerabilities. The interesting thing is here we're trying to put not only the vulnerabilities but the places where we can find them. And the top vulnerability is insecure ActiveX controls. For example, in the SAP front end, you have about 1,000 ActiveX controls, and now it's published about 10 or 15 different vulnerabilities in ActiveX controls in SAP, and other ERP systems are vulnerable too. So we were making a security assessment of one ERP system. It's closest market Russian ERP system, but the problems are the same. As I told about the buffer overflows, and also the format string, the heap corruption, the other popular vulnerabilities are possible too, and at this moment they are patched by SAP, but they have a 3 months grace period after the patching, and we can publish it, so soon information will be available. And another one thing is very dangerous, and we see it in some ERP solutions. What's the problem? The client problem is that the client have hard-coded passwords for connection to the database, and all access right checking and are on the client side. So you have a client side where you put your username and your password, and the client-side application gives you rights for access. And the problem is this, that the client-side connects to the database with the passwords of the database administrator, and you simply can sniff the traffic. If you have access to the client side, you can sniff the traffic, take this password and use it directly, and there is no check if it's direct connection or if it's connection through the application. So you can simply use this account and make everything in the database. And for this vulnerability, and one very popular ERP system is vulnerable, but we cannot tell now about this more concretely. It was briefly about the program errors. Now let's look at the implementation errors. For the implementation, we make another guide, the implementation assessment guide. Things are the same. We just look for more critical, all the critical vulnerabilities, but the picture is something different. First of all, you must think about the network, because if you have a network vulnerability, for example, you don't have the encryption, you can simply get the passwords, and all internal levels can be hacked. So then you have the operation systems, and then you have a database and application and the front-end vulnerabilities. And in every of this area, you have the different implementation problems, and you must know about them. So there's a list of the network architecture problems. It's popular things like universal passwords and missing pages and etc. So let's look at some examples. So it's one of the examples from our assessment of the SERP solution. The RFC protocol, which was told before, often used to from one SERP server to connect with another SERP server and make some technical stuff. And this technical stuff is making by the technical accounts. So the first thing was to sniff the traffic, and the RFC passwords are just XORed with the known value, this known vulnerability. So using this username and password, we get access to the XI system, the Exchange Infrastructure system. So, for example, if you have SAP solutions and other ERP solution or your own solution, you must somehow make connections with them, and SAP XI is a server which make connections with other systems like the proxy. This system are not storing critical data, but this system, using one of the SAP transactions, we can look for the RFC connections to the another systems. And sometimes the connections are hard-coded, so we can simply just push the button and click connect and give the connection to other system where the real data is stored. So the next one is the operation systems. All those problems are popular not only when you're talking about ERP, it's just common problems, but you must know about them when you're trying to assess or implement securely. So, for example, if you can get access to the operation system in the SCP, there are many different files where can you have the encrypted password or the plain text password for example, the J2E trace files. Sometimes if you have wrong connections, the trace file is generated and you can see it's not easy to see, unfortunately, but in the trace files you can see the password in the clear text. So it's just one of examples of the importance of the operation system security, like segregation of duties inside the application, inside the operation system users. The database vulnerabilities, I can talk about them many times because I wrote the book about this, but today it's not the time for this. So just example about the unnecessary enabled services. It's one of the biggest problem because many people know that standard passwords for the database must be changed, but there is some problems with the unnecessary services that can exist. So, for example, in the Oracle database you have a hotel file and other functions. Using them you can get access to the other systems. For example, in the Microsoft SQL Server we have other functions too. So for example, Microsoft SQL Server using the function Expedia tree, we can make the same SMB relay attack, and this works even if you work with a typical user with no rights. So it's working not only in the administrator rights, it's guest rights, and this function is available to the guest rights, to the guest users. And often, if you, for example, install the Microsoft SQL Server in 2008, it runs from the network service, but if you use it in the ERP systems, every service runs from the account of the ERP system. So it's not the. So if you try to use this attack, you can have credentials. And another example for the Oracle is was firstly introduced in my paper. So it's another way to steal the SMB credentials, and this also will work even if you don't have any rights in the Oracle database. You must have only the connect role and a resource role, and this role is have any user. So if you have any user access to the database, you can steal the hash credentials. Application. So you can see the biggest problem is the patch management and the default passwords and the segregation duties conflicts. And the problem of the patch management is very big because if you for example, work with Windows operation system, you can simply install the patches, and maybe sometimes it will be problems, but in the ERP systems, because of big amount of customization, if you install the patches, there sometimes must be problems, very big problems, and the system will not work, and it became a money loss. So administrators don't install the patches until it's really needed. So one of the most popular thing is default passwords, and they can be founded not only in the application but in the database which is used in this application and sometimes the operation system. And we wanted to make in the last month published all the list of the passwords for default passwords in one place. So for example in SAP you have different users with default passwords, and if you install SAP with the database, you have the default database passwords. If you use the PeopleSoft ERP, you have many default passwords too, and the same from the Oracle Business Suite. Another thing is remote management interfaces. So, an example of the SAP, maybe you hear the Mariano Nunes presentation from Black Hat. He told about the RFC protocol problems in the SAP solutions. So briefly the talk was about if you have access to the internal network, you can, and if you have some technical user, you can use the RFC functions and run any command and make DOS attacks and other. So, but this was only internal, and there is no secret that it have a web RFC, so you can make all these attacks using the web. You just can Google it, .sap is the web RFC, and if you have for example, SAP CPIC user with the admin password, you can make everything you want in the ERP from the internet. Then there's some more vulnerabilities that we found in the web RFC, but they are unfortunately now patching, and we can't tell. And the front-end implementation problems. For example, if we talk about the lack of encryption, here is different applications, SAP GUI, Java GUI, Web GUI, and the other is the application. Using them, we can get access to the ERP solutions. So they have different problems. For example, in SAP GUI, we have a DIAC protocol, which one was not the encryption, just the compression, and some months ago one guy published a tool for the decompressing it. And so, for example, Visual Administrator is a tool for administrating Java instances in SAP. The protocol encryption in this are vulnerable too, and information will be available soon too. Insecure distribution services. So often, if you use the SAP solutions, you must somehow deploy the client-side application to the clients, and in companies when there may be thousands of the users, and they must somehow install the new versions of the front-end software. So often it's made using the Windows shares, the shared resources. The administrator just put the distributives of the front-end to shared resources and the configuration files to shared resources, and any user can download it or manually or automatically downloads. So if you somehow hack this server, you can make everything with the distribution of the front-end software and set trials and other things. And let's talk about the awareness. The purpose of this document about the statistics is to increase the awareness of administrators and users and everything who are involved in ERP security. So we collect the information from the different sources like CWE and Security Focus and other, and collect the number of vulnerabilities. Here's the first graphic of the number of vulnerabilities in different ERP systems. You have the overall number more than 150, so it's a real problem. Instead of, for example, mobile viruses, we have only for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mobile viruses. Here we have 150 vulnerabilities every year. Also, if we talk about the ERP, we must look at the databases. They also have problems, and the application servers. So, for example, the PeopleSoft ERP use the Oracle BIA WebLogic server as an application server. So, if you have the vulnerability in the BIA WebLogic, you must patch it too. And the number of it growing. There's a SAP vulnerabilities number in the 2009, and in 2010 it's only for the 9 months, so the whole year will be about 2 times more. So this area becomes so popular. The number of vulnerabilities is growing, and the number of different talks in ERP security is growing. For example, in 2006 and 2007 there were only 1 talk a year, and now it's approximately about 10 talks about the ERP security in those conferences where I know. Maybe there are more. So, for example, tomorrow we will have another talk about the ERP security in the SAP business subjects. So it's popular, and we must make something with all of this. Need some automated tools, guides and other things to improve the security. And the on-access dispel, the previously named Sapito, was the first tool for the pentesting SAP solutions. Also, there is one tool named Safe by CubeSec for checking some security issues in the SAP systems. What we done, the first project was SAP Exploit and SAP Trojan, the tool for the penetration testing users, and then when we own the users, we try to penetrate to the SAP servers. And Next is the ERP Scan Online, is a free web service for checking the overall security of the front end. And the ERP Scan Security Scanner is an enterprise application to make many different checks. So the SAP Exploit and SAP Churn, it was firstly introduced in Hack in the Box Amsterdam, and a new version of this will be introduced in Hack in the Box Malaysia. So the purpose of this tool is not only to hack the user workstations, but then collect somehow the credentials and get access to the server and get the real data. And this real data can be shown to the top management to understand that the problem is critical, because if you show them the report with the CMD shell, they maybe don't understand what's going on. The next one idea was to check the existence of vulnerability without exploiting it. So, and the second idea, it must be easy to use, because the SAP Trojan is cool, but it's very difficult to deploy. And we wanted to collect the overall statistics of this, so the idea was to make the web server and clients can get access to this web server, and after some checks they will see the level of the security. So we're checking the existence of the ActiveX controls and their version to understand if it's vulnerable or not. We check the browser settings, say for scripting and other things, and we check the user awareness by the asking the questions, and then we will show the graphic of their awareness level. So it's kind of not only the tool, but really the service where we can teach users, and we will, after all of this, we will show the flash demo with awareness things to teach users why it is not good to click the links, to use the passwords, to store the passwords and other things. So we really wanted to make it to this day, but we have some problems, and in 1 week it will be fully available in the erpscan.com, and everybody can check it and write us something to improve this. Some words about the ERP Scan Security Scanner. It's the service was for the assessing the front end, and this is for assessing the SAP application server. So this is a big solution to check the misconfigurations, the vulnerabilities, compliance, and the existing 0 days, and also the checks for the segregation of duties, and all the possible checks in the SAP implementation. This product is on the last stage of the development and will be soon available. So it looks like this. There is different checks if it's good, if it's bad, if it's not good. So, for example, because we have a big amount of customization, we can only show you for example, the list of users with the critical authorizations, and you can think about them. You can know, oh, okay, these users are really administrators, and these users are, and then it can be customizable. So you just write the list of users with administrative rights, and we will show another users. We have a description, of course, and the main things that we will show solutions for any of these problem, and the official solutions and other things. And other advantage, we every day we research in the SERP security area and finding the new vulnerabilities. So we will include those vulnerabilities in our product, and just even if the SERP not patches, you will know about these threats, and you'll know about how to make it secure. So if you remember those 5 steps about what I was talking, it's hard still, but maybe it's now a little more easier. So I hope you understand that ERP security is not a myth, and it's becoming popular. And for example, everybody here was Stuxnet, yes, and for SCADA systems, and there is no problem to make the same thing for ERP systems. We need to make guidelines and increase awareness of these areas, so everybody can help us in the last project. And this is very complex area, so if you're ready to do it, you must do it. If not, maybe it's better to give it to the other people. That's all I wanted to say. So thank you for listening, and maybe you have questions. Yeah.
What percentage of companies that you assess for, you find dedicated to security surrounding ERP?
Can you repeat this?
What percentage of companies that you assess have someone dedicated to security in ERP? I can ask you after, but just saying, because a lot of companies all assess dedicated network security engineers, so teams of people dedicated to network security. So do you find something similar for SAP?
Of course, there is a company on Upsys, maybe you hear about this. They also make research in ERP security and SAP security. This was I was talking, or?
You need to find a customer that you assess in the past, that you found that they have a specific need for the ERP systems. Security guys doing just ERP security, right? Yeah, so internally to customers.
Yes, we have people who involved in ERP security research and ERP security assessment
For customers.
for customers.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. And that's how we started it, and that's why we are.
You started with the customers, of course.
Yeah.
But the customer doesn't have special need for this. Yeah, sure.
Not every. The problem is that some customers, so very big customers, they have a SAP security team, but this team is only making a segregation of duties. Yes, and we're trying to tell them that there is not only the segregation of duties problem, and as Ilya told in the first slides, and as SAP CIO told in the CIO magazine interview, there is a problem in the segregation of duties, and another problem is the internet and technical threats and process scripting and other, and the ERP security guys don't understand this. If we put together ERP security guys and the technical security guys, we can make an ERP